you have to be doing something where you have skills that apply. He's like, Michael Jordan doesn't get into flow painting. Picasso doesn't get into flow trying to throw a basketball, right? You have to be challenged, like be doing the thing you have skills at a level where you have to really be there. Like you can't be phoning it in. Like,
Hello, aligned authors. I'm Valerie Isan, and this is episode 219 of the podcast. And it is July 22nd, 2026, as I record this. Today, we're talking about balance and flow with Stephen Puri. First, I'd like to thank my existing patrons for believing in my work offline and here on the podcast. If you are a patron in either tier, you get all my content always. You can support me and my dreams and my writing and my aligned author life for $11.11. And I will be so, so grateful. Truly heart to heart gratitude for your gifts. If you want coaching too, with 2 live calls each month, you can back me at $55.55 every month. You will never find coaching sessions for less money than this. So if you've ever wanted continued support for your writing and accountability for your projects, then this is the way to do it. Become a patron of the arts and of me at patreon.com/Valerie Isan. You can also support my friend and colleague and visiting co-host of the podcast, Eric Mertz, at patreon.com/Strange Air Stories for short stories in the paranormal mystery genre. Other updates, I've been looking into specific venues for the retreat here in Costa Rica. I did some inquiries and got back some price quotes. I'm working on the sales page. If you're interested in updates on the retreat, you can subscribe to the wait list, valerieisan.com/retreat. And if you're a retreat alumni, you've been to any of my retreats before, then look for an email coming really soon. I have a little special preview for you. I'm also doing a free micro writing retreat online for patron members, paid and unpaid. And that's going to be on Thursday, August 27th at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. We're going to do a 2-hour micro writing retreat. There's going to be a candle lighting ceremony and an oracle card pull to set the intention. We're going to do a check-in. We're going to do a guided meditation and then write words together and then do a little closing ceremony too. So I put the link up for that in the patron feed. Okay, I've been working on some client work. I have regular coaching with some of the patrons. And I've been working on my book. My newest book is going to be a nonfiction book for writers called Structure and Spark, about the writing process and book planning, the witchy book doula way. So I'm getting really excited about that. I've been doing some writing sprints in the morning with author Jessie Quack and her group. So that's been really helpful getting me back to the page. And I really need that external accountability, just like y'all. So that's exciting. I'm really enjoying the writing process. I just finished Do Less this morning by Kate Northrup. So I think I'm going to dive wholeheartedly into Cold Comfort Farm by Stella Gibbons. And I'm still picking up The Creative Act by Rick Rubin every now and then. That's what I'm reading right now. So let's get into the interview. Stephen Puri is one of the few people on earth who has been a senior executive at 2 motion picture studios and has also raised over $20 million in venture capital. He's produced the digital effects for Independence Day, which won the Oscar for visual effects. And in addition to his film work, he's founded 3 startups, 1 successful edit and 2 failures. He lectures now on the lessons in sustainable high performance he learned working alongside some of the world's more productive people. Yay. Thank you for coming on the
Yeah,
podcast,
here
Stephen.
we are.
Here we are. When you reached out to me and I looked at your website and I was trying to come up with kind of a topic that would be
Mhm.
interesting, I really liked everything that you speak about. So I'm hoping to kind of weave them all in, but I thought
Yay.
maybe I would
Okay.
just call this episode maybe like Balance and Flow, which sort of sounds like
Mhm.
a yoga class, but I'm here for
I do a
it.
lot of yoga.
Do you?
I'm good with that. My company is named a Sanskrit word for a reason. Like I'm super into yoga and meditation. So yeah.
Well, let's start with there because on your website you don't actually talk a lot about your company. So tell me about the company
True.
and you've got an app too. Like I want to know about these things.
Sure. So when I was my last gig in film, I was a vice president at 20th Century Fox. So I'd done a lot of action movies, like in the DreamWorks days. That was the era of like Star Trek 11, Transformers 1 and 2, Eagle Eye, stuff like that. And then at Fox, I was running the Die Hard franchise around Die Hard 5. Not a good movie. Don't go see it, as discussed, right? The Wolverine sequel that Chris McQuarrie wrote for me. Um, things like that. Billy Ray was adapting the 24 TV series to be a film, that sort of thing. And there's definitely a moment there where I was like, my studio is so engaged in the business, the show business, not the show art.
Hmm.
Really, the Go movies of my slate are all prequels, sequels, spin-offs, mash, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And it is not that you as the studio executive are some hero of like the underprivileged writers of the world who need to be acknowledged. You're there because they're like, hey, listen, if you make Die Hard 19, we know how much money it will make, and we're in business here, and Rupert needs the money. You know what I mean? So it's it's you're kind of the guy or the girl in the chair for that period of time. Even though from the outside it seems glamorous, you're on location, you know all the stars, and you're going to premieres. The reality is you're just overseeing that year's soap. And most people are in those jobs for 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, something like that. It's kind of rotating door thing. So when I left Fox, which Die Hard 5 for me was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. I'm like, this is a horrible project. And I would never want my children to find out I did this, right? Just like, no, all of this is bad. There's no idea here. Right. And I had, had that experience in contrast to DreamWorks, where I'd worked with Ellis Kurtzman and Bob Orsi, who, had come up as alias writers. They
Hmm.
did Mission Impossible 3, The Island, the Zorro movie, Transformers 1 and 2, obviously Star Trek 11, a whole bunch of stuff. And they were amazing guys who wrote large movies, even though for them, it was a very small movie that happened to have like genre elements, that sort of idea. Like for them, Star Trek 11 was simply Cain and Abel. That's what that movie was. And,
Mm.
Kirk and Spock are two brothers who are going to kill each other. And if you ever watch the movie, they lose the movie until they get over themselves. They have it out between them. And the point in time in which they team up is when they start to win the movie. Because for them, it was the redemption story of Cain and Abel. And then you can add into that photon torpedoes and Klingons and lasers in space and, terrorists with bombs and all that. But at the core of it, there's that sort of story, which with the original Die Hard, like the original Die Hard is simply a story of divorce.
Hmm.
Hey, man, my wife left me and I think I want her back.
Hmm.
And if you watch that movie, Bruce loses the movie until he finally thinks there is no way out for him. And he says to the guard, he goes, listen, man, if I don't get out of here, tell my wife I loved her.
Mm.
And the movie had to break him down to that point to go, you don't get your wife back until you step out of your macho bullshit and talk like a partner, right?
Hmm.
And then he starts, as you notice, win the movie from there. And he ends the movie carrying Bonnie Bedelia out over his shoulder. And, they're going to be a family again. So a lot of these movies that we'd worked on previously were movies where if you took out the genre element, if you took out the terrorist or the laser in space or the photon torpedo, there's still a relatable story of like, oh yeah, my parents went through divorce. That's kind of what it's like. It didn't happen on a spaceship, but yeah, it's rough, man. And you say things and you wish you could take them back and things like that. So I tell you all this to give you context. When I left Fox, I said, I'm not going to do another film job right now. All my friends were working on sequels,
Hmm.
Ant-Man 4, scripting and stuff like that. And I was like, what is the thing that I've learned? And I've worked with some really amazing screenwriters. In the action genre, I've worked with probably 12 of the top working screenwriters. And it's interesting to see the people who are at the million, $2 million level consistently, not one hit wonders and then they're burned out and they become realtors in Monterey. You know what I mean? I'm talking about like people who are like every year they're doing a couple, dialogue polishes for $500,000 a week. They're writing an original for $2 million, that sort of thing. And they had ways of thinking about their writing. They had ways about keeping a certain pace and a certain humanity to their life that allowed them to do that. And that's a lot of what I share now. You talked to, about, I built a website with a friend of mine. It's really about getting into a flow state. And, we can talk about flow states. It's obviously popular with the writing crowd because it's a huge part of being in flow. But that's what I do now. That is my main thing, is sharing information on flow states, how to have healthy productivity, because it balance and flow, and running this community of writers, and basically it's our community is writers, designers, and engineers. That's who are members.
In your company?
Yeah, in Suka. Yeah.
Okay.
And I know it was a long speech, but you asked an open-ended question, so there's danger there.
Danger.
Yeah.
Okay, so you started the Suka company to help writers and creatives get into flow state.
Yeah. And
okay.
Here's the funniest part is I didn't know what a flow state was until after I left film. I was starting this company, and I live in Austin, Texas now. I was flying to San Francisco because the next morning I was going to meet with my team, and I had an idea for like a feature the way I wanted to build. So I thought, what, on the flight, it's like almost 3-hour flight. I'll hack together a little version in Figma that I can show people tomorrow. And then if the team really digs it, we can have real designers, real engineers make it, but it's sort of like mock up. This is what it could look like, right? So get on the flight. Alaska runs that nonstop. And the captain's like, hey, sorry, kids, Wi-Fi's out, see you in San Francisco, right? Click.
Whoops.
And I was like, okay, that's cool. That's fine. So I start working, my little laptop. 15 minutes after you take off, we start to descend. And I'm like, oh, okay, something's wrong with the flight. We're probably landing in Dallas and they're going to tell us, oh, the hydraulic system, whatever, we have to swap planes. It's fine, whatever. Look down, over 2 hours and 40 minutes had gone by. I had no concept of time. I didn't know if the drink cart had come by. I didn't talk to the dude in the seat next to me. And my designs were done. And I liked them. And I don't know if you've done this, but I prepared for get in the Uber, grab a sandwich in the hotel lobby, little, restaurant thing, go up to my room, sit at that awful little desk and try and finish this and pass out for the morning, right? I got in the Uber and I called a buddy in SF and I was like, hey, man, I have a free night. Do you want to have dinner? So I told him this. I was like, I had this experience on the flight where I was like, I was in it and I wasn't watching the clock. And I was just, I think the designs are good. And I did them in like 2 hours. And he's like, oh, yeah, you were in a flow state. And I was like, a what?
A what?
He's like, how have you gotten this far in your life and you don't know what a flow state is? I was like, just tell me more about this. So he described it. We can talk about what that is. And the first thought that went through my mind when he described like this brain state you get into, I was like, why didn't anyone tell me in college? This would have changed my college career if I had this sort of tool or this understanding of my brain. And that sent me on a journey to learn everything I could. And there's a lot of writing about it. There's a lot of research, scientific research on it. And I was like, everyone should know about this. This is great. This is like we discovered skiing. Like, did you know on the snow, you could do this cool thing and just put boards on your feet? Let's go do it together. You know what I mean? So anyway, I get pretty excited about it, but that's what I do now. And I have an 8-month-old son, and I'm excited that when he gets to a point in life where he's like studying and learning and has things he wants to do, whether it's writing a screenplay, a book, creating an app, creating a restaurant, whatever it is, that it's one of the tools I can give him to go, man, hey, this is going to make your life better. Here's a little tip.
So in order to get to a flow state, I'm assuming there's like brain hacks or like shortcuts that you can take, but you have to practice
There's a ton
it.
of research.
You have to practice the getting into it though first, build those neural pathways, I imagine.
That is exactly right, Valerie. And let me set the table for 30 seconds.
Hmm.
I know there's a portion of your audience, they're like flow masters and they're like cross-legged floating above their laptops, writing with their brains, right? I get that. There's probably a cohort that's like, I keep hearing about flow states. It's getting this popular zeitgeisty thing, but what is it exactly? Is it woo-woo or what is it? So is it fair if I sort of define it
Please.
for like a
Yeah.
sentence? Okay. So there was a Hungarian American psychologist. He died about 3 years ago now, named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. And he had a thesis. He's like, you talk to high performers in very different disciplines, like athletes and authors and scientists and inventors, you know. And he's like, when they talk about the concentrated state where they do the thing that makes them famous, the thing we know them for, they talk about it in very similar terms, even though what they do is very different. And he said, there's something behind that, right? Sort of what up with that? So he did the research, he did the interviews, did the whole thing. And at the end of it, he wrote the book called Flow. It is from whence we get the term flow state. And he said the greatest thing. He said, I chose this word, even though many of the people with whom I spoke have their own term for it. Like there's a famous Michael Jordan quote about when I'm in the zone, it's just me and the ball. He's
Hmm.
like, Picasso had his muses, Einstein had his thought experiments, Hemingway had his, like, he said, I chose flow because it was the most beautiful metaphor for what I found. We are all on the river paddling to move ourselves forward. But if you align your boat with the current, it carries you. And he
Mm.
said, that magnification of your effort is what these high performers have figured out how to do and how to do it repeatedly. Like you said, they exercise that muscle and they know how to drop into flow and do the thing that, we all go, wow, it's an amazing book. It's an amazing shop. It's amazing painting. It's amazing thing. And so that sort of kicked off this whole set of research. A lot of the information I know you and I will talk about today is thanks to the people who were inspired by what he wrote like 40 years ago and said, let me dig into how does this work? Like, is it real? There's one of the key things was people are like, is this woo woo garbage or is this real? And there was a guy at Johns Hopkins University,
Hmm.
Charles Lim, and he knew that one of the things that had inspired Mihai was jazz, like improv jazz artists, freestyle rappers, people who just said at a certain point, I become one with the music, one with my jazz trio. And we're not thinking about ourselves. We're just like one. And so Charles Lim did a kind of kooky thing. He was like, hey, can I take like jazz musicians and actually put them in an fMRI machine and see, does their brain change in any way? Is there really something to this? And what he found is when they reported that they dropped into flow, like they stopped thinking about them and their instrument, but they became part of what their trio was creating. He
Hmm.
said the prefrontal cortex activity, like right behind your forehead, like the sense of self that can lead to second guessing yourself or being self-conscious, that activity fell off a cliff. It was like you stop second guessing yourself and they just let the music flow. And that is what a lot of artists, which includes writers, which includes painters, where you just get past that point of editing yourself as you go. And instead, like the words flow, the code flows, the paint flows. And once you've done that, yeah, then you're like, how do I get here more repeatably? You know?
So, one of the things I used to do in the morning was a visualization of myself at the keyboard on my yoga ball chair, like just
Yep.
words pouring out. And so I had this visual of myself at the desk, just blah, 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 blah. And then when I would sit at the desk, I would re-engage that visual and it became, I wouldn't say a hack for me at that time. I don't think I practiced it enough for it to, but
Right.
I
Right.
do
I understand.
think that it helped a lot. But, or and, I don't know which one to use in the sentence. When I have to write like marketing copy or messaging or, you know, some way to connect with audience, I don't go into that flow state. So I'm wondering if there is like that there's
Ooh.
too much of that prefrontal like judgment. And
Okay.
so
This is good. This is good.
how do you do the difference? How do you combine
Yeah.
them? How do you make it
So
be the same thing? Is it the same
I'm gonna
thing?
tell you a couple things that Mihai wrote
Okay.
I think one of them is going to be one where you go, oh, that makes sense. Okay.
Okay.
So,
I'm ready.
of
I got
course,
goosebumps. It's going to be good.
okay, here goes, right? So Mihai said, here are some of the characteristics of this flow state that I've seen in these different people. He said, yes, they lose track of time. They're not painting, writing, whatever, looking at the clock. Like you just don't care about the time. Distractions fall away, become uninteresting to you. You become a feeling of you're one with the work. You can do your best work faster than you thought possible. He said also, at the end, you can feel a sense of uplift or joy as opposed to depletion. You might have written a great chapter, whatever. You're not like, I'm exhausted from that. You're like, this was great, right? What were you going to say? Yeah, I saw that finger go up.
Oh, thunder. I'm in Costa Rica, so there's a thunderstorm above my
Oh,
head, and
that's
I don't
awesome.
know if you can hear the thunder or
No,
not.
no, your noise canceling is fantastic.
Okay. All
You can
right,
hear it
cool.
well. Yeah,
Sorry
yeah.
to interrupt the
So
flow there.
no, that's awesome. So he said, here, these are kind of the characteristics. And I'm being a little reductive, but he said, here's kind of, what to know about. He said, now there are some things that seem to be conditions to get into flow. Like you have to be doing something where you have skills that apply. He's like, Michael Jordan doesn't get into flow painting. Picasso doesn't get into flow trying to throw a basketball, right? You have to be challenged, like be doing the thing you have skills at a level where you have to really be there. Like you can't be phoning it in. Like it is, Picasso standing back from Guernica going, have I captured the horrors of war on this huge canvas? It is not necessarily him sketching something on a napkin being like, here's payment for the meal. The sense of you're doing something with your skills, you're challenged. He said, they also all believe what they're doing is meaningful. It's hard to get into flow if what you think you're doing is ultimately not really that meaningful in the world, right?
Okay.
And there's some other things he laid out in some clear sense of task and things like that. But obviously, it's a short podcast, and people research this if they're interested. So, with all of that, he said, "Okay, it's fair game. Anyone who wants to research this, I'm planting a flag in this concept that I have now named." And so, since then, really smart people have dug in and said, "Okay, well, this is a great brain state. Lim proves that it is a real thing. How do we get into it?"
Mm-hmm.
And there are some preconditions. And these are the things that I researched in building Suka, our website. I was like, okay, what is the up-to-date research on what helps you get into that state where you look up 2 hours have gone by and like the chapter is done or the feature is coded or the design is finished. And you're like, I feel great. Music is such a big one.
Okay.
Do you listen to any music when you write, just out of curiosity?
Only to drown out noise. I actually find
Yeah.
it very distracting. I can't have other words because I start
Yes.
listening to the other words and then I can't focus on the words that are coming out. But I can listen to instrumental and I can listen to music spoken in another language, that
Okay.
I don't
What you
know.
just said is so perfect because I'm going to tell you, most of the research says the sweet spot for most people is music that is 60 to 90 beats per minute.
60
It's
to
music
90
that they,
beats. Okay.
yeah, it's certain key signatures like, D minor more than other key signatures, things like that. It's non-vocal, like they're not singing along to Britney Spears or Blackpink, whatever their thing is,
Uh-huh.
right? It's music that they neither love or hate. So it's not like your favorite song where you're like, oh, I love this, nor is it something that bothers you. It's an interim zone of like, it lulls your brain into, okay, cool, I'm blocking out the world.
Mm-hmm.
It has long melodic passages that repeat. They can transpose in key signature, but they repeat that way. And lots of research on this. Now, I will tell you, running a site with thousands of people every day, invariably, I meet people who are like, yeah. I can only get into flow listening to like 90s gangster rap or like show tunes.
Everybody's different.
They're the outliers. They're absolutely outliers, which I've learned because they're vocal. They'll text me or DM me in the app. Be like, I'd love to have it. I'm like, okay. But I worked in film. So when we were starting Suka, I was like, I want this to be a beautiful flow state experience where you have one button you hit when you start writing, and then everything sort of happens for you. Your messages are put on pause, your music plays. So I have a bunch of friends who are film composers, right? So I could
Mm.
go to them and say, hey, who wants to write a bunch of long pieces that are probably 15 to 20 minutes long,
Uh-huh.
repeating melodies, non-vocal, not in your face, not too much, percussion, that sort of thing, right? So there's a lot of research on this. And a bunch of friends wrote about 1,000 hours of music, right? So I organized this into, more upbeat playlists, some down tempo playlists, lo-fi, because those are a big thing. We did binaural beats. Have you ever messed around with binaural beats? Okay.
I have a little bit, but
Do you feel anything?
sometimes I find them actually strangely I wouldn't say calming, but like, all right, here's some TMI. If I'm feeling
Let's
like
go.
I'm having some sort of anxiety attack that's about to happen and I feel like I'm in an SOS moment, I can put on something like that and it does like, I don't know, quiet the imminent freak out that may or may not happen. So that's all I know about
Yep. Okay.
that.
So I'll pause for a second just because I do want everyone listening, I know you do too, to benefit from this episode and go, I feel smarter and more equipped. Okay. So I'll pause on this. It's not a
Okay.
big point, but binaural beats, I didn't know that much about. It
Uh-huh.
is simply put this concept, and it was very popular in San Francisco in the Bay Area like 5, 10 years ago, that if you have to have headphones because you have to feed each ear a slightly different channel. You can't just listen to it ambient in a room, right? So
Mm-hmm.
binaural beats, you have to have headphones or ear pods or something. And then the sound you hear is offset by a certain number of cycles from ear to ear.
Okay.
And it's supposedly, and there's conflicting research on this. Some people swear by it. Some people swear it's, just placebo. But with like 36 or 40 hertz offset, it stimulates your brain to pay attention to the world in a different way because it's trying to reconcile beats that are slightly off. You know, it's almost like focusing on one of those random dot single image stereograms. You have to kind of defocus to focus, sort
Right.
of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So I will tell you this: in learning about this, a lot of friends, especially in the Valley, were like, "Oh, I want to use your app, but I really want some binaural beats." So we put up some binaural playlists. I tried them.
Mm-hmm.
I think I felt different, but I can't tell you that it wasn't like a placebo effect of I was expecting to feel different. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you think you've been drinking beer and then someone tells you it's non-alcoholic. You're like, but I thought I was so drunk. No, no, you thought you were drinking beer. So you thought you would be drunk or something, right? So I tell you all this because we put that up there. Here's a funny thing that happened. This is twist number one in the story.
Okay. Plot
A
twist
buddy of
number
mine,
one.
yes, exactly. A buddy of mine, Julian, calls me. He goes, "Hey man, I just got back from Nepal." I was like, "That's pretty cool." He's like, "Yeah, it was his son's high school graduation present. I guess his son did very well, got into a good college." And he's like, "What do you want?" He's like, "I want us to have a father-son trip. We're gonna go to Nepal, right?" So we did this. So he said, "I just got back. One of the days we were in Kathmandu, it poured rain so hard we could not go out. But I had some of my recording equipment because Julian is a recording engineer, a sound mixer for LucasArts. He does like Star Wars games.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I had some of my sound equipment. So I'm like, we're stuck here. And the rain was this warm, delicious rain. He's like, I recorded 2 hours of rain in Kathmandu. And I got back. I'm like, I have no use for this. Like, we're never going to use this in a Star Wars game. So he's like, but you're gearing up to do that Flow State website. So I thought maybe you'd want it. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, for free? He's like, sure. Right? So we put this up quietly. I said, what we're going to do is like I said, these playlists that are up, sonic caffeine or, ambient atmosphere or lo-fi nights, I was like, let's just quietly add another playlist and call it Himalayan Dream Rain.
Mm-hmm.
It's 2 hours of rain that loops. Can I tell you, it became our third most popular playlist in the entire app with no promotion.
I do listen to thunderstorms on Spotify when I write sometimes.
See? Okay. I'm going to tell you a funny story. I'm going to tell you a little funny story, and then I'm going to ask you a question. So I thought this was like, huh? I worked with how many friends creating 1,000 hours of like custom, scored music, blah, blah, blah. And rain is a big hit. We stuck a microphone out the window in this big. So because I run the platform, I know people's email addresses. So I saw some people listening to this and I emailed them going, hey, you chat for 5 minutes. I'd love to understand what you like about rain.
Uh-huh.
Now, before I tell you what they told me, why does rain, do you have an idea why rain works for you?
I just think it's good white noise.
It is, right?
It just blocks out annoying noise and it just fades. It makes everything else sort of fade in the back so that I can concentrate on what I'm doing. It helps with the focus, I think.
It totally does. And people who listen to it, I'll say this, they swear by it. They listen to the exact same 2 hours of rain every time they log in. It's amazing if you look at the metrics. Here's what most of them told me to reduce down everything they said to like one thought. Almost everyone said, "Oh, it brings me back to a time in my life when I had to study and it rained outside. My
Mm,
grandmother raised me in Georgia, and at finals, it would always pour rain. So I just associate like the pouring rain with, finals time and being inside.
mm.
Or my family had a lake house in Michigan and it would rain. And I was like, oh, so it is this trigger for you of like, I remember when I was inside and I was a student and the rain and the thing. I was like, that is fascinating. What do you think Stephen Puri does with this new information? Because he thinks he's really smart. What does he do?
Tells people about it.
A little bit. I did mention in the group chat, but I thought, oh, so we should have naturescapes. So I found recordings of streams in Japan, the surf in Cyprus, Emerald Lake in Canada with the little birds and all that. Flatline. No one cared. Absolutely. It was like rain and then we don't care. And I was like,
Okay.
oh, okay. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting experiment. However, I got an email from a woman in our platform that I saw, a member, but I'd never spoken to. And she's a pretty well known blogger in the UK. She'd never reached out to me ever. Saw her sign up, saw the name go by in the Stripe thing. And I was like, oh, wow, cool. I never reached, I'm not going to bother her. She's busy, right? She reached out. She said, hey, Stephen, I saw you experimenting with these non musical playlists. So I thought the door is open to make a request. And I was like, I would
Bring
love
it.
to hear.
Yeah.
Exactly. Bring it. I'm like, this is everything good made out of the platform is because some member has been like, I was thinking we could do this. We're like, great idea. We could build that. Right. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm very open. Please tell me. She said, well, for my blog, which I started, you know, I'm this cool coffee shop writer who's like living this artistic life and, and has this vibe. She said, what people don't know is during the pandemic, I had a baby and I can't really go to that cool coffee shop anymore, hang out with like my 1 or 2 year old and do that. But man, I miss that. I miss that vibe. She's like, is there any chance you could throw up the sound of a coffee shop? Because I would listen to that. And I was like, okay. So I looked around the internet. I didn't have anybody who had a recording. Julian didn't record a coffee shop in Kathmandu. And some dude in Vienna, Austria had recorded his local coffee shop. Just the of the
Yeah.
espresso machines and the
The
clattering
doorbell
plates and the little
ringing
like,
when you walk in.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I recorded that. So I reached out to him and I was like, hey man, like you don't know me, but this is what I do. We make a flow state app to help people get into the flow and I thought it'd be cool if we put up sounds of a coffee shop. And he's like, oh, that's really cool. You can have it. I'm like, for free? He's like, for free. I was like, thanks, man. Again, big hit. The coffee shop thing almost, I'll tell you this though, coffee shop almost exclusively with writers. You don't see a
Hmm.
lot of designers or engineers in there, but definitely writers. And it reminds me when I was a development executive, you have to read a lot of stuff, right? When I was at Fox and Sony and DreamWorks and stuff, you get a ton of books and galleys, comic books, treatments for movies, pitches, all screenplays. So yes, there's a lot of reading, right? And I'm not a great writer. I know that, but you have to read a lot. Now, I could read at home in my condo in West Hollywood, but on Sunset Boulevard, just west of Fairfax, right across from the Directors Guild, there's a coffee bean and tea leaf that's kind of known as this like writers clubhouse.
Hmm.
And it's pretty cool because you go in there, everyone's on their laptops, their little MacBooks, like hammering
Hmm.
away. And, in the corner is like the old guy who's been doing this for God knows how long. And he has 2 movies in theaters this year. He's making $1 million a script, but it's still his habit from when he was like 25 to come to this old coffee bean, right? And right in the
Hmm.
corner. And, you also have like the 2 girls next to you who just got off the bus and they're writing their first TV spec, and
Uh-huh.
it's just, it's not super social. People aren't like going table to table, like, oh, Valerie, what are you working on? But it was a feeling of you belong to a group of people who are all trying to do something together, right? They're trying
Hmm.
to write something great.
It's
And I
tribal.
would go there. It is tribal. I would go there on weekends just to sit in one of the little overstuffed chairs and read because I like just being around the energy of writers and creators,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when this coffee shop thing turned out to be a hit, it was not just the one blogger in the UK, but a lot of writers found it. We called it, by the way, we called it Cafe Vienne
Okay.
after the guy in Vienna. And I used to go there and listen to that. And we put up the coffee shop thing as a big hit. So I share this with you as one of the key things about getting to flow is knowing what kind of oral
Okay.
environment helps you drop in. Like when you said rain to me is a kind of like organic white noise. It
Mm-hmm.
drowns out some things. You are not alone. I don't you how many people we have to talk about that. And we even for some people put up pink noise and brown noise. You know what that is? Yeah.
Just different frequencies of that
Yeah, we kind
background
of like
noise.
roll off
Mm-hmm.
the frequencies. Yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
your ear doesn't hear every frequency equally. So you can take
Right.
white noise and then like balance it by increasing or decreasing sort of the high and the low end so it sounds more even.
My
And
both my sons are on the autistic spectrum, and one of them has
yep.
hyperacusis.
Hmm.
So he
What
has
does that mean?
certain frequencies of sound cause pain.
Oh wow, ouch.
And
Okay.
so like he always had a IEP at school that allowed him to wear headphones so he could put music in or some other kind of he had certain playlists that I think worked as that white noise for him or
Yep,
pink
for
noise or
him.
brown,
Yep.
yeah. So that when other noises that were loud or sharp, like he went to a school assembly once and somebody there was like a feedback on the mic. And so that
Oh, that
huge, and that hurts everybody's ears, but
yeah.
he was yeah, in the nurse's office for hours crying because it's
Oh
still
God, I'm
just
so
he could
sorry.
still hear it.
Yeah.
And then my other son has misophonia, which
Yep.
is
Oh, that's a rough one.
horrible. Whole different side of the neurological hearing spectrum. So
Oh,
so I know about pink noise and brown noise and white noise, and
so you
because of
know,
that
okay.
trying to find the sweet spot for them. But yeah,
It's
there's
so true. And everyone finds their own. Like that's so one thing I learned doing the sound part of our website was you can do what the science says, but invariably people come to you and they go, no, man, it's rain for me, or it's a sound of coffee shop, or it's, this. And ultimately, we're here to serve. We're here to go, we want to enable you. And this really like the same way Mihai had a thesis about hey, there's something on high performers and how they get into the state. There's something behind it. I have a thesis, which is why I do what I do now, which is I think we all have something great inside us. And the question is not, is it there? The question is, are you going to get it out in this lifetime?
hmm
And there are such forces in the modern world, even more than in the past, that are aligned so that you don't. Most of the $1 trillion companies, their business model is steal your life. Period. Full
hmm
stop. And like 10 years ago, Mark Zuckerberg would have to testify in front of Congress, right? And he would do that aw shucks thing of like, oh, Senator, Facebook is just here to like have grandmothers see videos of their grandkid. He was like pulling that thing. And now, if you listen to the earnings calls, there is no aw shucks embarrassment thing about it. It is straight up, whether it is Elon with Twitter, whether it's the TikTok guys, whether it's Facebook, which means Instagram, it is straight up listen. We hired these casino game designers, put them on staff. We have these behavioral economists, we put them on staff. We have the best designers, the best engineers in the world. And these are the techniques we deployed this quarter to steal everyone's lives so we can show them ads. And we call that shareholder value. Stealing people's lives, that moment of your life, we call it shareholder value. And this is how much money we made. And by the way, next quarter, we have new techniques we're going to deploy to steal more. And it's criminal when you think about like they pay the biggest paychecks in the world to those people to say, listen, if you could just get one more second out of a billion people, we'll give you stock options that your children won't need to work. Your
hmm
grandchildren need to work. So you are in a tug of war against that.
Yeah.
You have all of these smartest people in the world, these big corporations that are pulling on the rope, and the other side of the rope is you, you know? And I think that, I mean, that keeps me up at night. That
Yeah.
really burns me up because it's as if Mark called you up and said, Valerie, can I have your life? Because I'm going to sell it to these advertisers and I'll keep the money, but I'll give you some cat videos. And that's the trade. That's a trade because Mark would be very happy. He gets another yacht if you end up 70, 80 years old on your sofa scrolling and double tapping.
Yeah.
That's how he buys his yachts. And has this contempt for people because if someone writes the next great American novel, he doesn't get paid.
Mm,
He gets paid because he sells another ad to Clorox.
yeah.
And that's really why I do what I do.
So I had a question in here that I was going to
Ooh,
ask you about, which you just answered. So I don't need to
same
ask it
prescient.
anymore.
I skipped ahead in the textbook.
That's okay. But it was about the Suka company and why it's aligned with your values and is it and it sounds like you just answered it. You know, the reason you're doing what you're doing is to help people get into flow state so that they can get their lives back.
That's what it is. I'll say the reason I called our company this weird name, Sukha, right? Sukha is a Sanskrit word. Very few people, if you don't do yoga, know the word at all, right? But when we were developing this, we had like a beta version of the site running with beta members. And I was trying to come up with a name, in the awful brainstormy way of like, let me write down 40 things and they'll lead me to the good one. And I, flow state app 19 and distraction blocker 12 and just all the bad names. And this is around the time Laura and I got married,
Okay.
right? So when you get married and you marry the girl you met in yoga and you have a daily yoga practice together, where do you go for your honeymoon? You go to Bali to do more yoga, right? So we're flying to Bali and Laura turns to me. She's like, oh, what are you thinking about? Because you seem kind of like in your head. And I said, I'm so frustrated because I think the app is coming together. Like it was mediocre at the time. It's better now, but it was still like an early version. It's like it's mediocre, but it needs a name. It needs something that like states something about it. And I have all these bad names that are descriptive. Flow state app, distraction, blah, blah. And I aspire to something that's like Amazon was not called like online bookstore place. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
Nike, Nike, Wing Goddess of Victory, cool name for a company. And Laura said, you know what, over 2 weeks, you're going to be, on your honeymoon. No one's going to bug you. Maybe something comes up. So when we got to the hotel in Bali, I thought of what she said. I said, you know what, you're absolutely right. You know what might seed my unconscious is, do you mind if I speak to maybe 2 or 3 of our beta members just for like 5 minutes today and just ask them what's your favorite thing? And maybe over a couple weeks that bubbles into a word, right? So she was like, I'm going to the pool. I will see you at dinner. Right? So I dropped in the group chat. I was like, who has 5-10 minutes to talk? A couple of people said yes. And I asked them the same question. It was just like, hey, you know what do you love? Why are you here? Do you love the music? Do you love the distraction blocker we have? Do you love, the little task list that we keep for you to keep you on track with your chapters and stuff? Or, what is it? And the third guy, we were about 8 minutes in. I said, listen, I want to be very respectful. I asked for 10 minutes. We should wrap up. Thank you very much. It was really great. And the guy said to me, Stephen, you ask the wrong questions.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, dude, that I do not know that well. Tell me, what was the right question? He's like, you should have asked me why I pay you. And I was like, we're less than $1 a day. But I mean, I don't think it's a big, but okay, great, fine. I'll take the bait. Why do you pay me? He said, I found in the past year, I have 2 kinds of days. At 3 o'clock, I'm playing with my kids. They're currently 2 and 4. Or at 6 o'clock, I'm like, where did the day go? He said, I realized the difference is, did I hit play in your app that morning?
Mm.
So I pay you because my kids are not going to be 2 and 4 forever.
Mm.
Okay, you won that round. That was way better question answer than anything I was asking. So I go to dinner. I tell this to Laura. She's like, you should hire that guy. Like that is the best statement of why to do what you do that I've heard. And we were going to bed, like cute little honeymooners on our first night, in her little spa robes, brushing her little teeth.
Uh-huh.
And Laura looked at me with a mouthful of toothpaste and she said, in yoga, we hear all these Sanskrit terms like your karma, your duty, your dharma, your prana, your life force. And she's like, that guy you talked to, he described to you sukha, that feeling of when you're like in your lane, doing what you're meant to do, and you're good at it. You can do it with ease. You're in control of your day. She's like, you're not really aiming to be a flow state app or a focus app or distraction blocker. She's like, you just want to give people the tool to get to sukha, like the way that guy does. And I was like, you're right. I looked it up on my little phone. The Sukha company shockingly was available for $14. I bought the website. I texted my partner. I was like, we have a name, the Sukha company, the happiness company. I'm going to bed, And that was it. And that's why we're called the Sukha company, which once people understand why it's called that, they remember it forever. But most people are like, why the name? What is this? Is this like your brother's name? So anyway, yeah. So that's why I do what I do. It's super fun. And yeah.
So are you, as a new dad, discovering that you're using your own app more and more, or?
Oh, you know what, Valerie? I will tell you, over the past few years building this, I've spoken to a number of parents who have talked to me about, how time constrained they are, or how Sukha helps them. Like, I only have this time before the kids come home, whatever. It's like now I understand that. Before it was like a abstraction of like, oh, I know you're super busy, and it's like with the kids, I get it. Yeah, I didn't get it. Now it's like 3D to me, where I'm like, oh, that is super true. Like, you have these pockets of time. I have an hour here. How do I get 3 hours of focused, like real meaningful work done? That I didn't understand before having a child.
So on your app then,
Hmm?
or not necessarily on your app, but in order for a writer to get into flow state so they can take those small pockets of time and get
Yep.
immediately in the zone, in the flow.
Right. That's another popular in the zone. I was in the zone.
In the zone,
Yep.
yeah. So drop in immediately, knowing what sounds like
Yeah.
create that
Audio,
space for
oral, that was a big
you.
one. Blocking the things that distract you, like being very honest about, oh, you know what? When I'm working, I pick up my phone.
Hmm.
Okay, what can we do to help you with that? Oh, you know what it is? Like a lot of engineers, our platform, they'll open up like, and I've done this, YouTube to watch a video on how to use a React component. 3 minutes long. Some other engineer posted this really friendly, helpful thing on here's how to use this open source code library. And then, YouTube gets you with, hey, you want to watch a video about how to cook crispy skin salmon, which I personally am working on. And I'm like, oh, click. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So stuff like that. And I'll tell you this. Do you ever go to study hall when you're in college, or go to like okay. So study hall for me was a really important reference point. And I'll tell you why. When we're building Sukha, I looked around, okay, how would I solve this problem? And there were a lot of like one feature kind of apps. There was like an app to play music. There was an app that was a timer. There was another app that blocked my websites. There was another app that blocked my phone. Like, there were like all these things. And I was like, I'm too lazy to hit 5 things every time I will work. I'm not going to do it. I
Hmm.
just want to open one thing, hit play, and start working, right? And it does everything for me, right? So what I noticed is with a lot of like the distraction blockers, like, oh, don't open YouTube, don't touch your phone. There was a lot of like negativity, almost like punishment around.
Mm.
It was like, well, Brick was one of the companies, like, we brick your phone. You
Yeah.
can't even turn it on, right? Cold turkey. You have to cut this cold turkey like it's smoking cigarette. There was a lot of like negativity and shame around it. And I was like, what worked for me? And maybe it's worked for you. I don't know. But what worked for me is like in study hall back in college, if I had picked up my phone or done something like that, my friend next to me, like if you were next to me, you're like, hey, Steven, like, is that helping you? And you're like, oh no, you're right. We should get back to studying. You know what I mean? That's all I need. I'm not a child and I
Hmm.
don't want to be punished. But sometimes you do need a friend who's just like, hey man, is that helping? And you're like, no, honestly, Instagram right now is not helping write this paragraph. No, it's not. So that's what Tony and I did. We were like, you know what? Here's a little Chrome extension. Here's a way of doing this. So if you pick up your phone, if you open a website, and you can specify what websites get you, we give you a list of like 20 obvious ones, but you can add to it or subtract from it. All it is a little voice in your computer says, hey man, is like Amazon.com helping you right now? As an adult, you can say, you know what? I absolutely need to order this pencil right now. Yes.
Hmm.
And click, don't bug me. I have to do this. Or you can say, thanks. I'm going to close this. I can do this later in the day, not when I'm writing. And that's how we designed it. So when you ask about things, the inputs of getting to flow, yeah, music or any oral environment, like we talked about white
Hmm.
noise or rain or music, distraction blocking, you know, having a timer to help you stay on track, which is not to say like I have to do Pomodoros, which is that popular 25 and 5. Like I tried Pomodoros when we were building our thing. Doesn't work for me. In
Hmm.
25 minutes, I've just hit the point of I have an idea and I'm into it. And then it feels like, oh, and now I'm supposed to stop and take a 5-minute break. So what we did is we made it so you can click the timer and type in whatever you want as your cycle. I do
Hmm.
50 and 10s.
Okay.
That's a really good cadence for me to be like, okay, it's been 50 minutes. I've gotten that blog post written or whatever it is. Let me go pee. Let me go get a can of water, which I drink a lot of, and that sort of thing. So that's another kind of input about how to stay on task. I know I've been talking a lot. I'm sorry. I'll be quiet. You
No,
talk.
no, I was just going to say this is all really good not feedback, the tips and tricks to drop us into that flow state so that we can work on the things that are important to us and stop so we can also live an aligned life and live other parts of our lives and not just be at work all the time.
Play with your 4-year-old. You know
Thankfully, I don't have a 4-year-old anymore.
anymore. I know, but I will soon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and talking
I
with
appreciate
us.
it.
This was a
This was
really
super
cool
fun,
conversation.
including a
It
power
was.
outage in the middle. Who knew?
Yes. Hopefully, I'll be able to edit that out a little bit. But if not, it'll make a good
Regardless,
story.
it'll be memorable. I'm like, remember that time we talked about the power outage? Yep, yeah, I do.
That's awesome. All right. Thanks
Uh,
so much for being
have a
on the
great
show.
afternoon.
You too.
Okay,
Bye for
bye.
now.